In keeping with the last few videos, this is another one that bypasses a lot of the steps in a normal die-cast car restoration. A normal die-cast car restoration where you take it apart, strip the paint, carry out a number of different processes and then put it all back together at the end. This cuts out a lot of those processes. It's good for if you've got something that's just, it's alright like this, but it's just a little bit scruffy, a little bit untidy, and you want to make it, you want to unscruffy it, but without going through the whole process of fully restoring it. If you haven't got a drill or don't want to drill the rivets in these castings, or you've nowhere really to do any spray painting, then this is a good one for you, because all you need for this is the two cocktail sticks that I just showed there, some Tamiya Red Clear, some Tamiya Clear, some washing up liquid, some water, 600 grit sanding sheet. That's an ancient sanding pad that's probably about 50,000 grit, and then some 8,000 grit lapping film. So we're going to start by just cleaning it with washing up liquid. Never underestimate the value of washing up liquid in this game. This car's probably 40, 50 years old perhaps, and I bet it's never had this. Because who washes the kids' toy cars? Nobody. It looks better already, just for that. Just for going over with washing up liquid and then drying it off with a tissue. The remains of the tow hitch, I'm going to get rid of that and sand it flat so that what's left of it, the kind of stub of it, just almost becomes part of the back bumper. I mean, it doesn't quite. There is a bit missing out the back bumper. That's just how these are. But I've just sanded it down with an 80 grit pad and then just finish it off with a 600 grit, just so it all lines up evenly with the back bumper. And then we carry on using the 600 grit sanding cloth and sand down the front bumper as well. Sand down anywhere where the chrome's missing, where it's come off for a reason. It doesn't just fall off. It's because that's probably hit 50,000 skirting boards in its life and been bumped against walls and things like that while it's been getting played with. And do the same with the wheels as well. The wheels have got 50 years of probably been bitten and all manner of other kind of mishandling that will have gone on with them. So if you run the 600 grit sanding cloth over the bumpers and the wheel and around the edges of all the wheels, and then you've got a nice smooth surface for what we're going to put on next, or well, not necessarily next, but later. And then that's just this soft nylon brush that I'm going over it with there, just to get rid of any debris from the sanding or any debris that might have been there anyway. So already we've got something that looks a little bit neater than it was to start with. Now that ancient sanding pad that, like I said, grit unknown, could be 50,000, could be 20,000, could be, maybe it's still 10,000. It's definitely still got something, because if I can still use that to polish glass units up with, so it's not just a completely plain pad yet, but it's very, very, very high grit. So you're quite safe going over the entire thing with this, because it just smooths everything out. And all the scratches, all where the paint loss is, where it's been chipped and scratched, it will just brighten and clean up that metal a little bit and make it so that you've not just got dull metal there that's been tarnished over the years, because most of these chips and scrapes will have happened decades ago. So the metal that they've exposed has tarnished. There's a slight kink in one of the windscreen pillars as well. That's just the end of the plastic nylon brush. Just give it a bit of a lay, a little bit of a laying into with that. It'll do the trick. If you imagine straightening out a real car pillar with a gigantic plastic sort of oblong, you can imagine it'd do the trick. Now the lapping film, that's the real, that's what's really going to make the difference here between looking like something that's just been touched in and like really obviously touched in from like 20 feet away, and something that's been touched in quite carefully and sort of in harmony with the paint that's already there. So you go over, again, I mean, it doesn't really matter. There's no point really going over the wheels or the bumpers with the lapping film. The lapping film's just there to go over the windows. I would say 20-30 seconds on each pane. If you just, like the windscreen there, if you just do it like this, keep it wet. That's the main thing with the lapping film. Water's a very, very important part of what it does. And if you just go over each pane of glass like that, you will be getting rid of quite a lot of years of general deterioration. And go over the paint as well, because it's 8,000 grit, so it's basically acting as a polish. It's a polish that's not any kind of liquid polish, so there's not going to be any residue there. It will just clean up the paint and make it shinier And also level off the surface of the paint a little bit just to make it more suitable for touching in, because that's what we are going to be doing with this ultimately. That's why the Tamiya Red Clear is here. We're not adding any details to it or anything like that. It's just, we're trying to make this so it's just as it would have been from the factory in terms of its overall level of detail and things like that. But we're just trying to knock a few years of abuse off it. Think of it as, you found it in this condition, quite rough. Well, we're trying to make it so that you didn't find it in this condition. You found it a few years earlier when it was in slightly better condition, if that makes sense. The wheels, this is where the Tamiya Clear comes in. Now, I'm not doing the hubs of the wheels. I'm very carefully. This is why I'm doing it with a cocktail stick. I'm only going round the, well, what you'd call the tyre, so to speak, around the edges of the wheels. And that's it. I haven't put any of this onto the sort of the bits that are normally silver, the hubs of the wheels at all. And then all those areas that we've prepped using the different sanding pads and the lapping film, I'm now dabbing those in with the Tamiya Clear. The reason Tamiya Clear will work out on this one is because that's what it, more or less what it would have been painted with to start with. Not quite. They didn't just get the bare metal bodies and spray them with Tamiya Red Clear, with something that was like the Tamiya Red Clear. If they had, you'd have got something a bit like the old Hot Wheels Spectra Flame, or indeed the Corgi Rockets. I suspect what they did with these to get this lovely red, because it is a very, very, very nice red. It's like the red that Matchbox used to use in the 60s and 70s and, well, and into the 80s. They would have sprayed the body silver first and then sprayed a transparent red onto the top of it, so it's effectively a candy paint. So you repair candy paint with candy paint. So if you touch it in with, what I'm hoping is that the fact that we shined up that tarnished scratch metal underneath a little bit, I'm hoping that will kind of make it like it's silver, and mean that when we put the transparent red on top, it will look the same or similar over the top of it as it would over the silver paint, which is the original paint. So you've just got to be very, very careful with this, and like I say, use a cocktail stick. Don't try and rush it. In small areas, just kind of tap it on like the needle of a sewing machine, and in larger areas you can stretch it across a little bit. You can even stretch it across the whole sort of area, so it'll make it look a little bit more uniform and won't make it look like you just dabbed in these little bites here, there and everywhere. If you're wondering what it is that you can hear going on in the background, that's a greyhound taking a long, long, long time to settle down on his blanket. Round and round and round he goes. Where he stops, nobody knows. But eventually he will just pack this in and lie down. But it hasn't yet. Oh, he's down. He's down. He's all curled up now. So that might be it for a while, until he decides he's unhappy with that position and the whole procedure starts again from the beginning. So you can see now we're nearly at the end of all this now. It's a case of patience, but this is what you get at the end. And don't forget, this hasn't dried yet, because it still takes the usual amount of time to dry, even though you've applied it with a cocktail stick. So once everything's, I would say that there's only really about 10-20 minutes of work to do here, but it does need to be spread out, because you can try and do it all at once, but you'll end up touching work that you've already done and ruining it. So once you're confident that everything's dry, that you've done so far, then that's not a bad time to tackle the bumpers. Now I'm using a Molotow liquid chrome pen. You don't have to use a liquid Molotow chrome pen. They are very good in terms of representing the chrome finish that the thing would have had to start with. I'm doing it on the wheels as well. Same procedure as before. Rotate the wheel around to meet the suitable angle for you to apply the chrome, rather than following the wheel round and changing the angle is a much better way of doing it. Now the advantage of the Molotow liquid chrome, it is really good in terms of like how it looks, obviously, but you could get almost as good a result with just a decent silver paint pen. And the really good thing about those is you can just go down to a shop and get one of those, instead of, for some reason, Molotow chrome pens, you can only really get them off the internet, which is slightly annoying because you've got to order it and then wait for it to turn up, whereas a silver paint pen, you can just go and get one. And also the handling, you've got to be very careful handling the bits that you've done with a Molotow, because it can take weeks to cure properly, so you can't really touch it for all that time. So this is what we had to start with. So not an absolutely appalling example, but quite rough looking, not really like display worthy. And now you've just got something that will get away with being put on display. It's not perfect. It was never going to be, and I was never really expecting it to be. And if it turned out perfectly when he did it like this, nobody would ever bother drilling the castings and stripping the paint and doing it the long, hard way, so to speak. I mean, I certainly wouldn't. There's nothing fun about drilling a casting open. But what we've got here is just a nice, quick, easy, risk-free way of getting something that's worth putting on the shelf. I mean, if you look at it next to its buddies, next to a few old Corgi and Matchbox that are in pretty good nick, it passes among the crowd, it gets away with it. It's now display worthy, and really before it wasn't. And we got out of doing some four very scary looking rivets as well. Anyway, thanks for watching.